Your cat follows you into the kitchen. They don't sit by the bowl, they sit and watch you. Every move, every cupboard you open, every sound you make. And at some point you catch yourself saying, "What do you want?" As if they might answer. They won't. But behavioral researchers have found a surprisingly precise way to answer that question anyway. Not through imagination, through observation. Because your cat is already speaking, every single day. You just haven't had the translation yet. There's a version of this question most people answer quickly. They'd ask for food. They'd complain about the vacuum cleaner. They'd say, "Get out of my spot." And maybe, probably, even. But when you sit with the question a little longer, when you stop treating it as a joke and start treating it as the researchers do, as a genuine inquiry into what is happening inside the mind of the animal you share your life with, something shifts. Because behavioral science has spent decades doing exactly this. Not imagining what animals would say, systematically documenting what they're already communicating. Through body language, through vocalization, through the specific patterns of behavior that reveal, to a trained eye, what an animal needs, feels, and understands. The question isn't really what would your cat say? The question is, what are they already saying? And what would change if you could hear it? Point 1. What research actually knows about the cat's inner world? For most of scientific history, the question of animal inner experience was considered unanswerable. We could observe behavior, we could measure hormones, but what an animal actually experienced, whether there was something it was like to be a cat, was considered beyond the reach of science. That position has shifted considerably. The Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, signed in 2012 by a prominent group of neuroscientists, stated that non-human animals possess the neurological substrates for conscious experience. Cats have a limbic system, the emotional brain, that is structurally similar to the human one. They experience fear, pleasure, frustration, and comfort through neural pathways that closely parallel our own. They form memories. They have preferences that persist over time. They anticipate future events. As anyone who has ever opened a food cupboard and heard a cat materialize from another room can confirm. What behavioral science can read from a cat's behavior is not mind reading, but it is, increasingly, something more than guesswork. When a cat hides for extended periods, when they stop eating, or stop grooming, or stop seeking contact, researchers can say, with reasonable precision, this animal is experiencing something we would recognize as distress. When a cat slow blinks at their owner, when they trill at the sound of a familiar voice, when they press their forehead against a face they trust, researchers can say, this animal is experiencing something we would recognize as connection. The inner world of your cat is not fully legible, but it is not entirely silent either. Point 2. The 5 things cats are already trying to say. If you watch a cat carefully, not for entertainment, but as behavioral scientists do, looking for the specific signals that map onto specific needs, 5 messages emerge more than any others. The first is, I need somewhere that is only mine. The cat who hides under the bed, who retreats to the same corner whenever the house gets loud, who stops eating when their usual spot is disrupted. This is not shyness or anxiety as a personality flaw. This is a territorial animal communicating precisely and repeatedly. I do not have a space that feels safe enough to rest in. The second is, the routine changed, and I don't know why. Cats whose owners have irregular schedules show measurably elevated cortisol, not because they miss their owner in a sentimental sense, but because their entire nervous system is built around predictable patterns, and unpredictability reads as threat. The cat who follows you more than usual on disrupted days, who vocalizes at odd hours, who seems somehow unsettled without obvious cause. They are saying, something is different. I don't have enough information. I'm watching you closely until I do. The third is, please stop touching me when I didn't ask. One of the most consistent findings in feline behavior research is that cats who have control over when contact happens bond more strongly with their owners than cats who are touched freely. The cat who flinches, who walks away mid-pet, who tolerates rather than receives. They are saying with complete consistency, I want to choose this. Let me choose it. The fourth is, I am trying to talk to you and you're not answering. The trill at the doorway, the soft sound as they pass you in the hallway, the vocalization that gets louder when you don't respond. Your cat developed a language for you specifically, and when it goes unanswered, not ignored maliciously, just unnoticed, something in that exchange goes quiet over time. The fifth is perhaps the simplest. I just want to be where you are. The cat who follows you from room to room, who settles nearby without requesting anything, who simply stays, not asking for food or play or attention, just staying. That one needs no translation. If you've recognized your cat in any of those, this channel exists for exactly that moment. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Point 3. What cats think about their owners. This is the question behavioral science approaches most carefully, because attributing thoughts to animals requires a level of inference that researchers treat seriously. But the attachment research is suggestive. The Oregon State University study, which found that 64% of cats show secure attachment to their owners, used the same framework developed to study how human infants relate to their caregivers. The parallel is not incidental. A securely attached cat uses their owner as a secure base. They explore more confidently when their owner is present. They seek proximity when stressed. They are calmer, more resilient, more able to engage with the world when that specific person is nearby. What does that imply about what the owner means to the cat? Not that they are perceived as a human. Not that the relationship is understood the way we understand it. But that you are, in the architecture of your cat's world, the thing that makes everything else feel navigable. The thing that, when present, signals, the world is probably safe right now. If a cat could articulate that, if the felt experience of a secure attachment could be translated into language, it might sound something like, when you're here, I'm okay. Which is, if you think about it, not so different from what the people we love most mean to us. Point 4. The one thing most cats would say. This is where the science becomes something else. Because if you take everything, the attachment research, the vocalization studies, the cortisol synchronization findings, the behavioral signals that have been accumulating since the day they arrived, and you ask, what is the single most consistent message that cats communicate to the people they're bonded to? The answer is not feed me. It's not leave me alone. It is something closer to, I'm trying to reach you, and I need you to learn how. The trill you don't answer. The slow blink you don't return. The retreat you interpret as rejection instead of as a need for a space that feels safe. The hiding that means I don't have somewhere that's mine. The following, that means you are my reference point for safety. The needing at 2 a.m., that means you feel like the first safe place I ever knew. Your cat is not difficult. Your cat is not indifferent. Your cat is communicating, constantly, specifically, in a language that most owners never fully learn. And what they would say, if they could, is probably not very different from what they're already saying. You just needed someone to hand you the translation. Point 5. What cats understand about the end. This one is harder, but the question of what a cat would say cannot be fully explored without touching it. Because one of the things owners wonder most, in the quiet, private moments that don't get asked out loud, is whether their cat understands mortality. Whether they know, in any sense, that time is finite. The research here is genuinely uncertain, and that uncertainty deserves to be named honestly. What we know is this: cats register absence. They search for companions who have died. They show behavioral changes that parallel grief in ways that are measurable and real. They are sensitive to physiological changes in the people and animals around them, detecting shifts in scent, in breathing, in movement patterns that precede death in ways humans cannot perceive. But whether they have a concept of their own mortality, whether they understand that the life they are living has an end they are moving toward, that the research cannot confirm. What behavioral scientists can say is that cats live, overwhelmingly, in the present. Their nervous systems are oriented toward now, toward the current scent, the current sound, the warmth of the current moment. Your cat is not spending today worrying about tomorrow. They are spending today exactly where they are, with exactly who they're with, which is perhaps its own kind of answer. Point 6. What if a scientific imagining? So, your cat wakes up tomorrow and speaks, based on everything the research shows, the attachment studies, the vocalization work, the environmental needs, the cortisol findings, the behavioral signals that have been accumulating since the day they arrived. Here is what they might say. They would probably, yes, mention food, and the specific way you've been filling the bowl slightly less full than they prefer. They would tell you about the window, the one they sit at every morning, what they've been watching, how much the light changes through the year in ways you've never noticed. They might tell you about the sound you make when you're stressed, something in your breathing, your movement, your particular stillness, that they've been tracking for months and responding to in ways you never quite connected. They would tell you that the worn blanket on the sofa, the one you've been meaning to replace, smells exactly right, and that replacing it would be a significant error. They would tell you about the trill, the specific sound they make when they see you, only you, that they didn't make before you, and won't make for anyone else. And then, if the conversation went long enough, if the words held out, they might say something simpler, something that didn't require research to arrive at, something the slow blink was already saying, and the kneading, and the warmth pressed against your legs in the dark. I chose you. Out of everything in my world, the windows and the warmth, and the high places and the quiet, I chose to be where you are. That's the whole thing. That was always the whole thing. Your cat will not wake up tomorrow and speak, but they will wake up, and they will do what they do every morning. Find you, orient toward you, begin the day with you as their reference point for what is safe. The trill, the slow blink, the particular weight of them settling beside you. All of it already language. All of it already said. You don't need them to find words for what they've been communicating all along. You just need to decide to start listening differently. If this opens something, the next video is already there.